here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of Censor, because I recently spoke to Heitham from the band to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. They've been very active recently. They've got live dates running from March to August 2026. And also they brought out a new album last year, which is titled Sonic Dissidents, which is available from all good record shops and also on their website. I will put a link in the notes below. Also, I did an interview a few years ago with Heitham to find out all about his musical and interesting journey. So there is a little bit of a reference to that throughout this interview, but it's still fascinating. So we begin at the beginning, which is the early formative years. Heitham, it's over to you.
So I was born in 71, and my first 10 years of my life, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and I used to come over to the UK in the summer, and so I had this very strange, mixed up kind of childhood. Then I moved to the UK in about 81, and was exposed to. Obviously, if we discount everything, the sort of music that I heard around me as a child, which was a lot of Arabic music and a lot of disco and whatever records my mum had. When I came to the UK, I was exposed to a lot of early hip hop and electro, and then to rock music and psychedelic music. I got interested in heavy music. What I call heavy music, which is just, heavy guitars, mainly kind of slightly, back engineering it to listen to a lot of Hendrix and Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and
right
riffs, but that was in the 80s. So a mixture of like heavy riffs and electro, which was what we used to call hip-hop.
Yes, well, I remember there was the Street Sounds compilations that Morgan Khan used to put together, didn't he? There was a whole series of them that I remember sort of being excited, because it was kind of John Peel was my go-to person in the 80s, really. So I remember him playing these rather obscure tracks from America and being very excited. Especially there was a lot of really good female rap artists like Roxy Shante and the Real Roxanne, which were just fantastic.
Yes.
And
Real Roxanne Shante. There was Shah Rock from the Funky 4+1. In the UK, there was like the Cookie Crew and Moni Love and people like that.
Yes, my God, that was amazing. Yeah. I went to the UK Fresh event that was at Wembley sort of arena in, I think,
Fresh 86.
80s. I was going to say, I'm glad you remember, because I was going to say 85. So yes, so I was there.
Yeah, I was there.
Ah,
yeah. Of course, yeah. I was there. I remember it. Mantronics.
There was African Bambata.
DJ Cheese. I can't remember a bunch of. I can't remember who else was there. I remember Mantronics being incredible. Just the sound of those massive drum machines coming out of Wembley Arena.
Yes.
Like 808 drum machines, full blast. I was just like, wow, that's heavy,
It was very good.
The year before, that would have been the year before I discovered heavy music. Someone in my high school said to me, "Oh, you like kind of those sort of... Listen to this." And he played me Crosstown Traffic by Jimi Hendrix. And I was like, the beat is like an incredible break beat. And I was just like, this is amazing. It's so heavy and funky. And from that, I got into guitars. And
yes,
that was the gateway, really.
So out of all these years and interviews, I've never heard anybody mention DJ Cheese, by the way, which I'm very excited by. He's because no, seriously, because at that time I've always wanted to do an interview with DJ Cheese, because John Peel really pushed him, and he said he only got a couple of autographs by people. One something like Jimi Hendrix, the other one by DJ Cheese, which I think was
really?
Yes, for his son. And I just remember
Oh, good.
thinking, what happened to this, person who was at the forefront of, um, scratching, I suppose, wasn't it,
I
at the time?
think, if you look into it, he probably went to do something else in the music industry. I mean, that's literally, what's that,
40 years ago.
40? No, it can't be. Is it
Yeah, 40 years.
40 years ago? 80, yeah, 86. So, yeah, that's a very good question. He's probably, I have no idea.
No,
I have just no idea. He could be like gardening. He's probably looking after his garden at this point,
hopefully it's all worked out well for him.
making cheese.
Making cheese. Yes, it's the curiosity, isn't it? Yes, but I'm glad you brought up DJ Cheese. So that was kind of, yes, 86, which was quite a pivotal years. And I do remember there was they used to manage to rhyme the words ladies and Mercedes quite a lot in the Mantronics. So there's
Yeah, yeah.
but they had
Yeah,
that great bit, and there was people. I think Anita Baker, no, Joyce Sims as well was another one who had a great record out at that time, "Come Into My Life," which I think used Mantronic's beat actually.
that sounds right. Yeah, Joyce Sims. Yeah, you're right.
It
Yeah,
was
good,
it was it was
cool.
just it was just a really good and yes, and Def Jam records. But then, how did you then cope when you heard the Beastie Boys? That must have been a sort of
I honestly like the first Beastie Boys album was all right, but I'd already been listening to rap music for a couple of years when that album came out. Um, yeah, I'd already been listening to rap. I remember, yeah, things like K-Rob and Ramel Z and the Marley Marl Scratch and all these tracks that just, to me, just, yeah, the Beastie Boys sounded good, and I hadn't quite got into. It would have been like just a few months before I was kind of ready for it, so I didn't really get into the first Beastie Boys album that much when it first came out. It took me a little bit longer. It took me, yeah, I think I sort of got into it a little bit more retroactively. The first
yes.
Beastie Boys album that I really, really liked was Paul's Boutique.
Wow, that was very classy. I suppose I just quite like the hits. It just had a sort
You
of
like the party records. I mean, yeah, I love that. There's some great records on there. There's some great songs on there. It's fun.
yes. I
It's
was kind of
exciting.
aware that I should like Paul's Boutique more, but somehow I knew it was more clever, but there was something quite just basic about that first album and
But that
you know,
first album's just got the big. It's got the same that sort of AC/DC. There's no fat on it at all. It's just pure. It's a very rock and roll album. It's very punchy.
yes. But I do remember LL Cool J as well. There was a Peel played, on the radio and there was a double A side single that he had, which was just awesome.
So that's a good point. I'd heard LL Cool J's record before the Beastie Boys record, and I was like, "Oh, I've already heard this." In a way, it's like because I Can't Live Without My Radio and Rock the Bells. Those songs
Yes.
are basically like it's the same kind of formula as the. It's the same producer. It's Rick Rubin, right?
Yeah, that's the
So
one.
I think Rick Rubin had already tested it with LL Cool J, and he then went on to do the Beastie Boys record afterwards. Um, and I'd already heard that, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I wasn't, you know, I, that's why I think by the time that first Beastie Boys record came out, I was already sort of like, yeah, it didn't hit me with as such a surprise. I think it hit a lot of people.
Yes. Did you? Because at that, I mean, just on that point about those live gigs, and especially that one at the UK Fresh '86, did your eardrums get absolutely hammered with the whistling? By the way,
Uh, it's
'cause
it's such a long time ago. I don't.
there was a
I,
lot of whistling. That everyone had whistles, and it was like, oh, I wish you'd stop
I
doing that.
can't remember. I guess that must have been a part of it. Now that you mention it, there was some. I remember some loud whistling, but I would have been 15 or something, and I probably just took it all in.
It,
Like,
It was just that next day, and you just kind of had that, you know,
He had some tinnitus.
yes, that kind of that gig, really, wasn't it? But it was, it was kind of it felt like an amazing occasion. And did you then sort of at that stage, because there was of course so much music happening in that late 80s, there was that I don't know, there was Detroit, there was the Trouble Funk scene, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Which was quite
Go-go
exciting.
stuff.
That was good. And then you obviously had the Chicago house music, and then you had the sort of Italian Balearic house music that was also going on, as well as LA,
Spanish.
so as well as LA sort of hair metal. Did you embrace your sort of inner Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses kind of vibe as well?
Um, I liked Guns N' Roses a lot. I had that record. Bon Jovi, I it just it didn't really do it for me personally. But it's but yeah, no, I really I liked Guns N' Roses because they seemed a little bit more edgy. They had some really cool riffs. They didn't. Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke about this last time. I'm definitely like a sucker for the glam metal now. At the time, I wasn't really interested in glam metal. I I like Guns N' Roses because I didn't I saw them as this kind of slightly sleazy, edgy rock and roll band, which had a little bit more to do with punk somehow. Somehow, it's very strange to say that, but they had this sort of nastier edge that set them apart from the hair metal. Although, yeah, a lot of the hair metal I really like now.
Yes, well, yes, I think we can. Do you find, though, with age, you've slightly relaxed about being so tribal about what you like and dislike compared to when you were younger?
Yeah, I think it's easier to hear if something, to hear something on its own merits. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't have that, the worst of it was the sort of NME years of, people just getting like, like acerbic about their music tastes and getting really almost sort of I think obviously the newspapers themselves, but people would also sort of have that tone when if someone said, "Oh, I like this band," and they go, "What?" And they just start laying into them. It was just an excuse to kind of bully people because they liked some stuff that that you didn't think was cool or like, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The answer is, you know, do what thou wilt be the whole of your music taste.
Yes, well, no, I just realised that I sort of one of the regrets was being a little bit too tribal at times, or identifying to a scene and then regretting it slightly later, thinking actually this is quite good, and it's probably better emotionally, spiritually to be a bit more relaxed about life sometimes than quite so hit up about it or hit up.
I mean, I
So
think that if we had if we didn't already have that sort of slight slightly more relaxed approach to categories and the tribal nature of things, we wouldn't have been able to make the music that we did because our music has always been something which doesn't fit into a specific category, and that's why. Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that about their music, but uh, the reality is that our music, you could see these different genres in it, but it was clearly not one or the other or the other. It was so yeah. We had to be open minded from the beginning. I mean, yeah, I was listening to Miles Davis. I was listening to Thelonious Monk. I was listening to a lot of like music from Syria and Egypt. I was listening to music. I was listening to uh, I guess Laraji, and sort of some of that Brian Eno's label. I was listening to John Hassel a lot. I loved John Hassel. I thought he was a really, really interesting musician who'd played. I was listening to musician like Adrian Belew, who played
Oh
in
God, yes.
lots and lots of different bands. You know, he was with Bowie, he was with Frank Zappa. He basically allowed King Crimson to have a third career. You know, he took all those really complex patterns and made them into songs that people could sing and remember. Um, so I've always been I'm interested in people and things which have some, like, yeah, I'm not really a purist. I'm not really a
No.
purist. I listen to black nowadays, for example. I listen to the thing that I listen to most now is various types of ambient and electronic music, and I'm making some of that kind of music. I'm just made a recording with Second Son and Sarah Nicole, who's a avant-garde pianist, and I've made a bunch of strange records. I made uh, one that never got released with Swedish Bob from Part Chimp. That was like a Victorian hip hop album. One of these days, I'm going to put it out. That was about 20 years ago. We made that one, but basically, it's it's all music and it's all art. And actually, the less you obsess about categories, the more interesting music you're going to find, I think.
Yes, well, quite. And did you? I mean, but though you weren't part of a particular genre, there was that vibe of the 90s, that especially that early part of a sort of a movement going on, though, which had a little bit of that kind of festive rave alternative scene, which you must have had a bit of a crossover with your audience with quite a few other bands. I'm thinking of people like Back to the Planet or the Levelers, or that kind of rave culture. You slipped into that quite neatly because of the heavy beat and the sort of the general rap.
I don't think it was actually because of the music that we were playing at all. I don't think we fit. I think we fit into there because of the politics. I think that's what it was. I think it was like the only place that would put on free gigs. It was like, you didn't have to pay to play, or you could just. It was a scene where kind of left wing. Uh, Political bands, and they liked the guitars and they liked the sort of heavier, kind of punkier aspect of it. But I mean, musically speaking, we had absolutely nothing in common with them. We just happened to be. It was something that was happening outside of the mainstream, and they were the only people that would accept us at that time, because there was no, we weren't going to play Monsters of Rock with the heavy metal bands of that time, because the fusion and that stuff hadn't really happened. There was no new metal. There was no rap metal really. um uh Ice-T's band Body Count hadn't
Oh
happened.
yes.
um uh Rage Against the Machine hadn't happened. None of these things had happened. So where do you go? Where do you play? We don't play. We couldn't have played like Monsters of Rock. We couldn't have played those sort of things. We couldn't have played, um, and we couldn't really have played the NME stuff at the beginning. It was only when that sort of what you call the festy scene started to happen, and all those sort of alternative bands started to make it in, to and to get a little bit of traction, that that we started to, well, yeah, we sort of just ended up in that wave. But again, the only people, I think we just I really am getting a little bit of deja vu here. I feel like we talked about all of this before, but yeah, let me think. Pop Elite itself was one of the early ones, the early
Oh, there was
bands.
Yes, and there was, I suppose there was those, yes, there was the sort of, was it Grebo, that scene of people like gay bikers on acid.
Hmm.
There just seemed to be, I
That
sort of
was
had,
exactly the time. That was it. That's exactly that moment, the Grebo kind of period. But that was like three bands or something, right? You know what is it? It was like Sheep on Drugs, um, Gay Bikers on Acid, Pop Will Eat Itself.
was there
There was.
Crazy Head as well? Was that about one of the Grebo bands?
I have no idea. I mean, you could then include things like Ned's and the Wonder stuff, but already you're so far away from the type of music that we were doing.
Yes. On that sort of the 90s front, did you feel, because these were the John Major years, was that sort of a very important part of the basis of the DNA of the band at that stage? The sort of the politics, because in the 80s it was,
Politics was.
we had Thatcher
Like, was
and
John Major part of the DNA of my band?
well,
uh,
there was just kind of a rollover from the 80s, wasn't there? But there was a sort of a certain amount of tension, but there was also a certain amount of economic kind of wealth that started to appear in the 90s that sort of kept going until New Labour, and then it sort of absolutely it blossoms
mhm.
hugely. And I just wondered how that affected, what was there much money knocking about in the band during that sort of early period to the mid period of the 90s?
Early period, absolutely not. No, 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 no. I mean, there was never a lot of money knocking about in this band. No, I mean, there was, people, we were earning like what an average builder earns. There was, but uh, it's a strange sort of question. I mean, the John Major thing, like I remember, yeah, I mean, everybody was concerned with the rise of the BNP, British National Party, and the sort of slightly pathetic paramilitary wing of it called Combat 18.
Oh
And
yes.
but by today's standards, it just seems like now the Overton windows swung so far to the right that Reform UK is like almost they're fighting the good fight to try and wrestle it out of the Labour Party's hands, and the Labour Party itself has sort of turned to nothing. Back in those days, we were concerned with the poll tax and the British National Party, and we were doing whatever we could. We were involved with the Anti-Nazi League, and we had them come and they set up their stalls at our shows. Inside the venues, we would have them basically you know, included. It was we were very much wearing that on our sleeves. Um, so the Anti-Nazi League, and uh, yeah, we did as many benefits as we could for that cause. We That was our kind of connection to the John Major years, really trying to
Yes.
fight the byproducts of it.
Yes, because and I probably have said this before, but most bands seem to have quite a sort of finite period of time, don't they, when they sort of get together and they have that kind of, as I often say, a 12-month honeymoon period, and then the first single, mostly and sometimes by someone like John Peel giving it a play, and then that time of a John Peel session, and then that album. So what was it like for you as the 90s progressed then, sort of during that time? Because you get picked up on Ultimate Records and it
Mhm.
flourishes, but then by the end of the 90s, what was the sort of the general feeling for you, being going through such a sort of intense period, um, you know, as a young person still?
Um, I had an incredible time. uh, I By the time I was 25, I'd been around the world. Been to Japan, I've been to the United States, I've been from Finland at the top of Europe all the way down to Greece, and you know Bulgaria and into Eastern Europe, and you know, you know, by the time we got to the end of the 90s, you know, I'd already lived more than most people have lived in their entire lifetimes, and I was very lucky. I got to uh, make you know. So not only did I have the first record that we put out was incredibly well received, um, and you know, it's still, you know, that's allowed us to keep making music to this day. Um, and it's allowed us to sort of keep being creative. But I also got the chance to go off and do my second album really was the Lodestar album. So we made that. That was very fulfilling. And then not long afterwards, we went back to making Censor records. And then I guess not long after that, I moved to France, and I've been making records with Censor ever since. I've made 3 albums with the band Fiend,
Hmm.
and that's a much, much heavier prospect. That was very, very heavy and psychedelic, and toured with that band. Um, yeah, those records I'm very, very proud of. Um, and yeah, we just made another Lodestar record last year, and the sixth Censor album came out in 2025. So
Yes.
it's like, you know, it's all like, I feel like last time we really dwelled on the 90s. Is C86 specifically a kind of 90s podcast? Is that?
No. Actually,
Oh, okay, okay.
it was the NME brought out this cassette C86, which I
Oh, that's right. Okay.
yes, that famous cassette that came out only yes
Okay.
40 years ago, wasn't it? So it was always
Are,
curious, but then
are
yes,
we on those cassettes? Is there a?
no.
No.
There isn't. I don't know if there was, because then the NME during the 90s was still bringing out various cassettes, and
Hmm.
I don't know which paper championed the band most, or even
NME,
magazine.
NME, to some degree, Melody Maker, and then all the other kind of a little, you know, there's articles in Hip Hop Connection and Sounds and what, I can't remember what. There was tons of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of that.
But
And,
there was a couple of magazines. There was Select and Vox,
mhm,
wasn't there as well?
that's right.
Which
Yeah,
obviously sort of, you know, the monthlies started to become a big thing as well. So that
yeah, that
was
was great.
so there was an easy platform for bands. So
Mm.
then during the lockdown period, obviously it all changes. So that was actually when we did an interview actually. So then how did you navigate those years of lockdown and then bringing out a new album with Censor, which came out last year?
Yeah, the lockdown in Paris was pretty strict. The first one, um, I was, yeah, it was quite tough. It was like being under house arrest. It was like that. Have you ever seen? You've seen the movie Goodfellas? Seen that film?
Yes.
You know when they go to prison.
Yeah.
You remember that bit, and they're like eating all this incredible food, and
Cutting up
they're
the
like,
garlic.
well, yeah, he's got a system for the garlic exactly with the razor blade. It was a bit like that. So it was like lockdown in Paris was like fine wines and food, but still you're in prison basically. I mean, it was very strict. The people above me had COVID, above my apartment. The people below me had COVID. So, you know, and this was right at the beginning, and you'd hear a lot of ambulances in the street, and, you know, it's scary. I didn't know if I could go out into the hallway, if it was going to be, you know, if it was safe to just leave the door of my apartment. It was, initially, it was quite a scary time.
Well,
And
yes. Well, I'm asthmatic, so I was very like, oh my God, I don't,
mm,
you know, I'm sort of aware of not being able to breathe very well. But actually, I didn't really know many people who had got COVID during that period. I know someone's parents did, which was awful because one of them died
yeah.
because they were elderly. So it
Mhm.
was, I mean, I know people now go, oh, it's just fake?
No, I know older people who. I mean, my dad died of it, and a few people. My dad was very unwell at the time, but that's what kind of finished him off. Yeah, I think a lot of people got taken out by COVID.
It
Uh,
was, yeah, it was scary, and I remember getting very confused with various people about which bubble, whose bubble were you in? I
oh,
don't
the
know.
bubble. So that was what they did in the UK. In England, there wasn't really. In France, there wasn't really this the bubble thing. There was just like you no more than this many people um, can congregate outside. Um, and that was, yeah, it was around the time of my 50th birthday, and we had to do it in the winter in a park over 2 days because we couldn't get everybody together. Um, it was just a very difficult social experiment. Uh,
Yes. So then so you brought out two albums, the Lodestar.
in the
And
last 2 years, yeah.
yeah, so did you start working on those during your lockdown period?
Oh no, the sensor one, we've been sort of back and forth thing for years with all the demos, and we've never stopped with sensor. We've always been playing gigs and going on little tours, and just keeping the creative process going. Um, but for this one, it took quite a long time. I mean, the initial demos, the very first demos were probably about 8 years ago. Uh, and they were just, people building on them and, adding to them and passing them back. And then someone else adds more to it. Uh, it's all, you know, I mean, I'm very proud of the way that we did it. And there's no, it got to about number 40 in the UK charts, which is not bad considering we don't have a record company. It's just us. It's completely independent. It's completely, it's all down to mainly down to the bass player James, who's really, really very committed to the kind of organizational part of it. But yeah, I mean, it's completely independent. There's absolutely no compromise involved in any of it, and it did really well. I mean, it's allowing us to go off on tour again. Every time we put a record out, it's we can we have these incredible experiences afterwards touring, and we get to play festivals and get to travel and.
Yes, you've got quite a few dates coming up this year, haven't you, actually? Is that is it for this year, your tour dates at the moment? Because some bands
Yeah.
often forget to sort of change it and you go, oh no, that was last year, but you've got a whole sort of season of tour. Is it that with recording the album then, were you doing it all remotely and then just
Yes.
putting it, so what is the process? How do you manage to construct something? Because it must be very different to the early years when you were all together recording and writing and
Yeah.
coming up with ideas. So how does this process work?
So we've been together a long time, so we've tried lots of different approaches to it. Um, this particular way is we make demos individually. So I'll make a little piece of music. John, the drummer, will make something. Sometimes Nick. Different people will make pieces of music and then kind of submit them, like throw them in, and you throw something into the ring, and if people get excited by it, they're gonna react to it, and they go, "Oh, yeah, that's great." And they can imagine what they're gonna put to it, and they can write parts for it, or just jam to it and figure out their parts, and then build it. And it can come from anything, some of the tracks I started them on GarageBand on my phone. Some of the beats I made with some little beat making tool called Jamble on my phone. A lot of it I did. Now I'm using Logic, but that's just the sort of yeah. You can use Logic, you can use GarageBand, you can use anything you want. You can use a microphone. I've got a
Yes.
bunch
Is it James who is the person who brings it together then, who sort of makes sense of it? Is he the
not. I mean, not. musically speaking, that it's pretty kind of democratic. I'm just talking about the organizational quality aspect of the band. He's the one that really, you know, keeps his hands on the details and the organization. And we all owe him quite a lot in terms of his dedication to it, because he essentially manages it from the inside, which is for no extra credit.
Yes.
It's a huge thing, and I'm very grateful to him.
Does censor mean a lot to all the members, though? Or have you had moments where certain members have often been a little bit sort of, you feel like they're going to leave? Or do you feel like quite a tight unit at the moment?
It's really tight. I mean, it's really good. I think since I spoke to you last time, um, the only personnel change uh, is DJ Deckwrecker, Agzilla, who is in Ronin before, and you remember Ronin?
God, no, I don't actually.
Oh,
Jesus.
I think once you hear some of it, you'll remember what that is. Um, he's had an incredible career. He's an incredible DJ, and he's joined the band when our previous DJ was seemed to be kind of groomed by the Tommy Robinson far right gang, and we could no longer do business with him. And so we parted ways, and luckily, um, I was introduced to this guy, Ags, this DJ who's just complete. He's such a dope DJ, and so we got a new member, and we got new. Uh, that's injected a lot of energy and excitement into it. But in terms of the writing process, yeah, everybody just makes little things, shares them, and people get excited about them or don't.
Yes.
And
Has it been quite a
mostly,
relief to have a newish member in the band, just to sort of have a different conversation or a different narrative, or come from a different angle that you think, oh, that's quite
yeah.
nice? Because I obviously love David Bowie from a very early age, and it's always been interesting seeing how he's sort of worked with musicians and what they must have brought to what he was trying to do, and sort of their influence. So I just wondered if somebody like that coming in has given the band a little bit more of a lift, rather than, I mean, we've all been in groups and dynamics and community where sometimes you kind of need to shuffle people around a bit, otherwise it gets a bit stale.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's the only lineup change that we've had in about 30 years, so I can't really speak for the idea. I can't really compare it to Bowie's never-ending, lineup changes. Uh, but uh, but it's certainly. I mean, this guy is incredible. He so he was at Fresh 86, for example.
Right, he was there. He
He
was.
was there, like, so he was on a sort of parallel. He was doing his thing in the 90s, and um, he saw us at Glastonbury, um, and he was tripping. And it was one of those ones where, like, we'd played our kind of Glastonbury show, and then they said, "Oh, do you want to come and play in this little glade? Do you know about this? There's
Oh
like this
yeah.
little forest, and they had a stage in there." And this was like the next day, and I'd already taken psychedelics, and they're like, "Do you want to do this gig?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I think it's the only time I ever tried to do a sensor gig um, on LSD.
Blimey, that must have been interesting on the. I know it. Well, it can have any effect, can't it? It can be like, wow, this is heaven. This could be hell. So, what was it like trying to?
It was kind of. Uh, it, I think I was just running on muscle memory, because I was just staring at the they had all these like color projectors on the trees, and it just looked amazing. So I was sort of, it was like having a sort of out of body experience, just remember, singing, rapping my parts, and looking at the surrounding foliage. But he was there. He saw it, and he was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And then he just sort of forgot about it. And then he wandered, and he saw us again at another festival. He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember this. This is good." And you know, again, he was much more into the sort of the hip hop world, um, and yeah, it was just by complete chance that a friend of mine introduced us, and in Paris, and we just sat and drank beer and talked about early electro records for about 5 hours, and it just
Yes.
worked.
Did you, on that sort of level, did you ever see that? I know, just going back to the old days, but the '90s narrative was quite interesting. Were you big in America at any stage, or did you ever go and tour America?
Don't think no. Oh yeah, we, you haven't listened to our podcast, have you?
No, I haven't actually, have I? God, this is terrible. I
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
listen.
yeah. Yes.
I
Uh,
probably I kind of cringe when I hear myself actually.
no, no, no. It's not that. It's just that for anyone who's heard the first one, they're going to like this.
You've asked this question, you idiot. Yes, I know.
Yes, I'll give you the short one. So
Yes.
move on to other stuff. Yes, we toured we tried to tour America, and it, it's pointless trying to tour America if you don't. If you're on your own in a van or in a tour bus, because you're just going to play to different empty rooms. Nobody knows who you are unless you've had some huge push over there. So the trick is to support someone. And all the bands that we wanted to support, we could never like fall in sync with those people. And
Right.
the only person that was always there each time we wanted to tour, we were ready to tour the States. He was saying, "I'll take you," as Moby. And basically our crowd, our music didn't fit with Moby's crowd at all. So we ended up playing these big shows every night to kids who just didn't care, little rave kids, with they look like Pokemon manga looking kids, basically. Yeah, sweet. There was, I've got nothing against them, but we went on and we just destroyed them every night, and they looked like they were going to cry, and yeah.
Yes. I just wonder.
So
Well, it was just interesting that narrative when I don't know if you saw the film, the Woodstock '99 film, where
I
this
did.
kind of quite heavy sound and this kind of like people getting it was so macho, wasn't it? And there was that kind of moment where you can start quite innocently and then enter into the dark side. I just on some level your sound would have almost been okay for a weekend in sort of hell with Woodstock '99, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think there, but for the grace of God, I'm really happy that it looked like a fucking horror show. It looked it looked grim. I mean, it was grim. People got a lot of the girls got raped at that thing. It
Yeah.
degenerated into this kind of mm, into a very ugly scene, as you might say. So no, I'm really glad we didn't play that. And I think the biggest shows that we played were about 40,000 people, and that's well big enough for me. I don't need any. I don't need to play anything bigger than that. It looked ridiculously large. That crowd, it
Yes.
looked like something that, if you were more than halfway back, there was no real point in being there, I think.
Well, it was also sort of the place. It was an old airfield, wasn't it? And it looked like
Mm.
there was like you were talking about Glastonbury and the Glade. And I remember for quite a few decades, we used to get free tickets to work on the healing area, and it was all very nice. The green fields, and there was the stone
Mm.
circle, and it was this very groovy. There was the permaculture people and people doing the crystal healing. It was all very organic, wasn't it? At times, I mean, it could be
Oh,
muddy, but it had a history to it, and it had the ley line. It had all that kind of cosmic Arthurian legend
yeah,
stuff going on.
it was a the Hangover in the late 80s and 90s. It was still kind of the hangover of the hippie festival that it used to be. The first time I went to Glastonbury was 1987, I guess. and it was bikers and hippies and lots of acid, and it was not the Glastonbury that it was even in the 90s. It had already started to sort of transform. um, but yeah, when I went to it in the 80s, it was still pretty wild and pretty hippie-ish, you know.
Yes, I was slightly terrified when I went because I hadn't experienced that kind of walking down the main drag, and there was just like for miles people just saying, acid, speed, heroin, just
Hmm.
like constantly going, Jesus, this is a bit different to
What
my
was the
norm.
first year that you went there? Do you remember?
That was 87, actually. I
Oh
want
yeah.
I wanted to go and see Husker Du, but they had played on the Friday afternoon and they'd been and gone. But then I saw the Bundu Boys and the New Order, and I don't know, there was a
I
whole.
remember seeing New Order from a very far distance. I wish I see. I had no idea who Husker Du were. I would have loved to see that. Like, you know, a few years later, I was like, you know, I that was an incredible band. What's the one, that album with Chartered Trips?
God,
What's that one? It's the bluish one.
is it
That's
Candy Apple? No, it's not Candy Apple Grey. There was because the last album, Warehouse, was a bit tinny, though I liked the songs, but it's sort of the production was a bit odd, really.
uh,
Um,
hold on, find it for you. You can edit this bit out if you want.
yes, there was is it this album that had something I learned today on it? I don't,
Give me a second.
yes, we need the facts. This is quality. Yes. So anyway, those early, yes. Well, the thing about that Glastonbury period, I do remember seeing people laying in mud, wondering, what do you do for the rest of the year? Because you're just laying in a ditch or laying in a puddle, and it just seemed unbelievable. I didn't, you know what I mean? You go for a weekend or long weekend, but there were people who looked like, what do you do the rest of the year? It
Yeah, yeah,
baffled
yeah,
me.
yeah. Absolutely. That's I know exactly what you're talking about. People, bikers that are just face down in the mud because they've had too much speed and cider, and well, people who look like wizards and they're selling wizard candles, and it's like, are you a professional wizard? It's like, is this what? Yeah, what do you do when this weekend is over?
Yes.
But I think a lot of them, they probably went back to their towns and they were just like the local wizard, the local hippies.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think the wizard's done okay, but the people in the mud, I just remember, just weird. It was just you walked through fields into other areas which were like, God, this is quite different now. This is the festival, but not the festival. And it was just, I just remember that was the kind of, I suppose, some quite early rave scenes going on, and there was the TP
people were
circle.
actually, people were turning on, they were like activating new parts of their brain, um, and changing their consciousness. Obviously, it was kind of often kind of just recreationally, but people were having life-changing experiences, which I don't think people are necessarily having when they're going to, drink prosecco and see Florence and the Machine. Do you know what I mean?
No, God, no, that's
It's a different approach. I don't want to. It's not about it being the good old days. It's just a completely different um, uh, idea of what that sort of gathering should be. you know, I think Glastonbury became just another thing on the circuit, like Glyndebourne or whatever you call it,
Oh
or
yes, that's
you know what I
the
mean?
yes. I get, yeah, I do. I mean, because I loved all that ley line spiritual stuff that was going on, and the wizards and Arthurian legends. I suppose I think Michael Evers and Emily must, like hats off to them for organising such an event on their doorstep, and the history that they've got with it, which goes back
Mm,
right to that very early 70s with David Bowie playing his
mm,
acoustic guitar at 4 in the morning. I suppose I just think, wow, that is quite something. And to hold it together, because I remember a few years later there was the battle between the security and the drug dealers from Bristol, and there was a
hmm.
bit of a riot going on, wasn't there? There was the travelling community would break down the wall, and to deal with it, you just think you probably had a few issues with the band over the decades, but God, to deal with it so much violence at times must have been quite
Mm.
terrifying. Thinking, yes, we must do that again next year, Michael. That would be a very good idea. The cows
Yeah,
will love
yeah.
it.
Huge responsibility because everyone's expecting something from you, and also he became sort of like a tastemaker in his own right at some point. Like he sort of he felt like he'd earned the right to to choose what kind of bands would be on at his festival, which I totally get it, but it was it's quite hard because he's got to read the room for the whole subculture.
Yes.
He's
Well,
got to read.
well, I guess I don't know what the situations have been with you and the band, but when he has to put some sort of collateral up, like his farm, thinking, God, I hope it works, otherwise I could be losing so much. That's quite a
Mhm.
gamble, isn't it? I wouldn't want to put that much, especially when you get to an age thinking, I've done enough. I can take it a
Mm.
bit easy
I,
now.
I mean, he's not involved in that part of it now, is he? He can't
I
be.
I wouldn't have thought so, but then I don't know. You know, if you put an event on and at the end of it you have all the legality and all the people who've wanted to sue you and all the issues, and then so oh, we had 2 people die this year, and you must have to go, oh, only 2. Well, that's fine. If it's double figures, I'll get worried. But to deal with
Mm.
all that, I just think must be a lot to
Oh my God, yeah. It's it's an industry. It's like a small corporation. It's the yeah, running any kind of festival of that scale now it's a huge enterprise. I mean, yeah. Have you do you know anything about like Hellfest in France? Do you know about this festival?
Hellfest.
Hellfest, yeah.
No,
Hell, Hell, Hellfest is one of the biggest heavy metal festivals in the world, and it happens in Clisson in France, and that's incredible. Those guys have built that up from quite a small thing to yeah. I mean, there's that, and there's probably um, what's the one? There's a one in Germany which is really big. Um,
my
not
God, yes, I can see it's flaming, isn't it? Really.
it's yeah. So and if you take a look behind the scenes at what it takes to make that happen, it's you know it's yeah, it's an epic job, and it involves thousands of people. It's not, the organization of it is one thing, the logistics, the security, the safety, the medical backup. Something like Glastonbury or Hellfest they're like it's like a giant cruise ship. It's it's gonna have
Have you been, by the way?
to what?
Hellfest.
Yeah. I mean, I've played there. If you Sensor's played there, Fiend has played there. Yeah.
Blimey. And was it a terrifying experience or enjoyable experience?
Um. So with all the heavy metal festivals, my first reaction is like, oh my God, are we going to be heavy enough to work? Is like, or is anyone going to show up? And of course, it's always full. It's always like, it's yeah. Those people, the heavy metal people, are the most loyal fans, and
Yes. But they're
they
quite fickle as well. I couldn't imagine heavy metal and Censor being the same. I remember sort of because I coming from East Anglia, there was a Status Quo, Black Sabbath, Deep
Mhm.
Purple, all it was Motorhead, all those bands. So something like this, Censor would have, a bit like Twisted Sister, must have confused the audience a bit.
uh, that's what I'm saying. No, I think as soon as our record came out, the first record, um, all that stuff about that because it's kind of you're really aware of the sort of build up to our first record, so you're aware of the context. But came out, then it went on like MTV in Europe. It went on MTV in the UK. It went around the world. And when it went around the world and people heard it, they basically said, oh, this is a heavy metal band with rap, with electronics, with this kind of slightly ethereal Englishy sound, but essentially, it's riffs. And those people are exactly the opposite of fickle. I mean, they will stick with you through thick and thin. You can even make it. I mean, I'm not saying that we're making bad albums, but I've seen bands which have made three bad albums in a row, and people, they'll still keep giving them a chance for, like, okay, well, let's see what the new one sounds like, because we love what they do in general. We trust them, or there's just a loyalty there to the music, and a deep love. I mean, the heavy metal heavy crowds are the most passionate and loyal
Well,
long term.
I know Lemmy used to say with Motorhead when they were going through a really bad patch, it was the German market was the ones who kept them
Hmm.
going, because they would buy the CDs, they would get the merch,
Hmm.
they would come and see you. The music that they were still making, Motorhead, was good, but it was just no one at that point was particularly interested in the next Motorhead album. And then slowly,
Yeah.
they become popular again. And I do think their last few albums, they had a producer, and they sounded as good as some of the early stuff. So,
Oh
um,
yeah.
but some of I mean, they did have a few lineup changes, and there was a couple where there wasn't that many great songs on the albums, but the last couple were brilliant. Just amazing. So, yes, but
I think one of
obviously,
my
but
favorite Motorhead songs is that song "Sacrifice." Do you know that song?
yes.
It's a great song. The drums on that is so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. We could talk about them for hours, but yeah, I I I love the early stuff, but I love there's all the way through. There's always something good in there. They were such a good band. Saw them a
Yeah.
couple of times.
Well, no,
Sorry,
they
I
were.
cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It was just, but they were solid, heavy metal. I suppose I just think, Motorhead were that band who there was no alternative, was there, to their sound. Whereas I
Mm.
suppose I just looked at Censor, not quite. I didn't look at Censor as a heavy metal band, actually. I have to come.
Well, it's the thing is, it's not a heavy metal band, but it is a heavy band in the sense that it's thrash riffs basically mixed with, with guitars and decks and rap, and so, so it's yeah, it has enough of that. And so the people that, when they discovered that, they were probably listening to Sepultura and Ministry and Killing Joke and, things which are heavy but not really. Well, Sepultura is definitely thrash metal, but it's yeah, no, to a lot. I mean, people would be like moshing and throwing themselves off the walls, and it wasn't an indie band. It was,
Are the other members of the band as keen on heavy metal as you are? Do they come from that same place?
I mean, the guitarist definitely. The drummer is very, very eclectic in his taste. The bass player also. Kirsten, the singer, is probably more into kind of classic rock. She's not really into, like, she doesn't really like any of the really brutal stuff. I like a lot of brutal music. I like
But
black metal and death metal and crust punk and yeah, I like all kinds of extreme metal.
Napalm Death?
Oh yeah, seen them a few times.
Yes.
Incredible band, incredible, unrelenting. You know, just in, I just can't praise them enough. Unbelievable.
Yes, I remember seeing them on a triple bill in Ipswich with, I think, Bolt Thrower and Carcass or somebody like that.
Bolt Thrower is a great band, really, really good. Carcass is good. It's not my favorite, but yeah, Bolt Thrower is another excellent band.
Actually, another Ipswich band was the Stupids that came along, which also had some quite a good sound. Do you remember the Stupids at all?
I remember the name, but I don't think I remember their music.
Yes. So look, this year, this decade, then you've got two bands, you've had
Mhm.
two albums out. How do you then juggle?
Decade, I've had like 3, 4 albums out. I had three, yeah, if you include the Fiend albums.
Right. My God, you have. So how do you sort of separate your time then between each commitment? Are they all touring bands, or are you just? Is it mostly Censor who are touring?
Censor's the one that tours the most. Fiend is on a kind of hiatus at the moment. We made 3 albums and then did a big tour with Tool, and then we sort of knocked it on the head for a while because the guitarist didn't feel like he was up to it. But yeah, we don't. There's no difficulty with the division of time. I mean, it's usually like the creative process is just kind of ongoing, and then when it comes to touring, there's not much clashing that happens. It's
Yes.
not an issue.
So what have you got lined up? You've got a tour with Censor this year, and you've promoting the album. Have you got any other tours coming up with other bands this year?
So no, I don't have any other. Not so far. No, but I mean, I think it's important to point out that like, the one of the reasons that we can still do it to this level and to maintain it in this way is that mm, we've all kind of settled down, and we're not a touring band in the sense that we just play music and spend like 300 days of the year on the road or whatever. We have jobs, and we have families, and uh, it takes a lot of organization to make it all work. But if you look at the touring that we do, it's basically like long weekends.
Yes, I noticed. I know there was quite a lot of bands who will do they're not going to give up their day jobs for the music
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, at some point we had to sort of uh, adapt and survive when we had to, yeah, people have, yeah, families and children. And I don't think we wanted to be that band that just tours and just record in that same, it's just, it would have been, I don't think we would have been happy doing it like that. If someone said to me, okay, you're just gonna have the next 4 years of, just touring like we used to do a couple of hundred dates per year minimum, right?
Hmm.
And I don't think any of us want to do it like that. We want to put out creative pieces of music. We want to put out, albums that we like. We want to play gigs to our fans, and we want to maintain something that is very fulfilling and sort of has a real importance to us and to the people who come and see it. Like it's it's really touching how passionate people are about this band. It's very, very touching. The people that come up to us at our gigs, it's yeah, it's a big, big thing, and it's very, very important to us. Um,
Yes. Well, it's yes. I guess there is a not responsibility, but there is an element that yes, you probably people can tune into what they listen, what were thinking or feeling when they first heard you and what they were going through, and you probably held them together through some dark times and low times. So yes, the soundtrack to someone's life, really, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, there are people bringing their kids along, who people whose first gig was a Sensor gig, you know, in that period that we keep talking about in the 90s. But then they're bringing their kids along to our gigs, and those kids are teenagers now. And that's like, and people coming bringing their families from Eastern Europe to shows in France, or bringing people to the UK, people flying from God knows where to see the band. people, it's obviously very important to a lot of people, not just that first record, but the whole story is important to a lot of people. Uh,
Yes. God, that is amazing. So you got these dates. Then after the summer, are you
Mhm.
taking a bit of a break, or will you be slowly working on the next album or the next project?
I think we're going to be working on um, the next album. We're gonna, it's gonna start happening. But I think as the year goes on, that more dates are gonna get added to the second half of the year, and we've missed the window for a lot of the big festivals this year. But things like Hellfest and Wacken and some of those festivals, um, we'll probably try and do those next year. So we're already thinking about what's coming in 2027, and yeah,
Yes, my
yeah.
God.
I mean, we there's plenty of ideas for uh, for the next for the next record.
Well, this is very exciting. Well, thank you for your time. I know, yeah, sorry that I've asked you some questions I asked before. Um, I probably
It's
asked you,
okay. It,
how do you pronounce your name again? God, I'm gonna this.
Heitham, Heitham,
There you go, Heitham.
Heitham.
It's that simple, isn't it? Yes, I know. But it was 5 years ago, and we both had very long hair, and we were both complaining about lockdown hair, which was a thing. No one else will
Oh
have.
yeah, yeah. No, I've just cut mine short and allowed it to just be what it is, and yeah, I like it.
It keeps it easy when it's short, I have to say, actually. And were you sitting in this very room last time? Because it was
No,
probably
I
five.
was in a different apartment then. Different
Oh,
apartment.
so have you moved?
Yes, I've moved. Yes.
Right. Are you still in love with Paris?
I'm still in love with Paris. I'm spending a lot more time in Los Angeles. Um, I'm, yeah, but I love coming back here. I like going back to London. Uh,
Is your day job then in LA?
no, my day job, I have various day jobs, uh, making music for video games, and teaching at the Decorative Arts School, which is one of the sort of biggest art schools in France. And no, it's my fiance is in Los Angeles and
Right.
works in the movie industry.
And that, dear listener, will be the end of the interview. Massive thank you to Heitham for giving me the time for that from Censor. This has been the C86 show, David Eastaugh. So if you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 show. All these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, True. Have a great week. Stay safe.